Hey guys, we are going to be talking today a little bit about track management and workspace management in Premiere. Now, one of the things that you're going to run into as you begin to do more and more complex projects, and those are projects that maybe involve graphics, they involve what we call adjustment layers, they may involve putting letterbox bars or something like that on your project. You'll notice that you begin to use more and more and more video tracks on your timeline, as well as audio tracks on your timeline. As your projects get more complex, you'll have audio tracks that maybe are just there for ambient sound, sound effects, dialogue, voiceover, music. All of those different things may come into play in your timeline. And one of the things that's really important as you have projects like that is to understand how to utilize, manipulate, change, delete, and add tracks to that workspace. Now, if you can see right here, I have a project that I have completed, and it's a pretty simple project. It just has some video, just cuts, plus audio with a couple of sound things that I've done to it. And so it's really, really straightforward. Let's say I am just really, really particular about what my timeline looks like, and I want to get rid of all these tracks. How do I do that? Well, it's really easy and very pretty straightforward. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to where it says sequence, and I'm going to go to the very bottom of that menu. And you'll notice that you have two choices, and they're pretty straightforward. Do I want to add tracks, or do I want to delete tracks? If I choose delete tracks, it's pretty easy to navigate this menu. I have several options. I can choose to delete a specific track on the video portion or a specific track on the audio portion, or I can just say, hey, get rid of everything that doesn't have any kind of content in it. When I do that, all I have to do is hit OK, and then all of a sudden have a very straightforward sequence. Just one video track, just one audio track, because that's all I've used. Now, the other side of this is maybe I want to add tracks into my timeline. That's pretty common for the certification test to ask you to do that. And so it's the same place, sequence, add tracks. And I can not only tell it how many tracks to add, whether it's 1 or 4 or 6 audio tracks, I can tell it where I want it to put those tracks. I can also, with the audio side of things, tell it what kind of track it should be. Do I want it to be 5.1 surround? Do I want it to be mono? Just do I want to be a normal audio track? I can do that and then hit OK, and then it will have added all of those new tracks in there. That's really nice, and again, as your projects get more complex, it's something that you're going to want to know how to do. So making sure you know that, it will come up no doubt on your test, so understand it and utilize it when you need to. So I'm going to not enjoy looking at that, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to delete all those empties. There we go. Now, the other thing to think about and understand when you are working in Premiere is understanding workspaces. Now, you can look at the top of your screen, and you probably have a list of the different workspaces. And when I choose any of those, assuming that you don't get the horrible beach ball, it will give you a workspace that's geared for whatever kind of project that you're working on. Now, these are helpful to some degree, and sometimes maybe a little more complex than you're probably wanting to deal with. I don't usually use their default workspaces, except maybe color is one that I use. But understanding how these work is crucial to long-term success in Premiere. You know, if you've used Adobe programs much, that if I can click and drag on any of these borders between the windows, and I can change this. Well, sometimes we do that both because we want to see one thing, or maybe we've inadvertently changed something, and we're all of a sudden going, how do I get back to what was normal on my workspace? That's going to be up at the top of the screen here where it says Window. I'm going to choose Workspaces, and then I'm going to choose Reset to save layout. So whenever you have a workspace issue that something's changed for the negative, or you just want to get it back to the way it was, reset to save layout right there, and it's all fixed. Now, maybe you have a particular way of working that you like. Maybe you want to have a giant program monitor, and you want it to be like super big. And maybe you want audio meters that are bigger than the normal default setting. And you're like, this is how I want to edit. I want this to be my default standard workspace. Well, you can do that. You can save it so that it's always there and available for you. And that's going to be right here. Now that varies, that wording varies on some of the different versions of Premiere. Sometimes it'll say save as new workspace. Sometimes it'll just say new workspace. I think on some of the certification tests, it may say just new workspace. So be aware of that and know that if you see that, that does mean save it. So I'm going to click that real quick. It's going to give me the opportunity to name it, and I'm going to call it Mr. Upchurch's workspace. I'm going to spell that correctly. And hit OK. And now it's available as a choice up here. I can change out of it and go back to normal workspace, like the editing workspace. Get that back to normal. And if I ever do want to go back to the workspace that I created, I can click the name there. Or I can go Window, Workspace, and there's another place where I can find my workspace. Now, if I decide later on that I will never use this workspace again, then I can always go here to Edit Workspaces, and I can click right there and say, no thanks, I don't want that anymore. I don't want that one. I don't want that one. And I can hit OK. And now all of a sudden, all of those workspaces that I had before are gone, and I just have the standard and default one. So the biggest thing to remember, adding and deleting tracks is going to be in your sequence menu right here at the bottom. Anything dealing with workspaces is going to be here, Window, Workspaces. The most important ones are Reset to save layout and also Save as new workspace if you ever have a custom one that you really like. And once you know those things, your management of your projects in Premiere is going to just be that much smoother and more effective.